Panel jemputan pada slot ini adalah Encik Torik Arif Dewan, Pensyarah Jabatan Jabatan Kejuruteraan Awam dan Alam Sekitar, Fakulti Kejuruteraan Universiti Gajah Mada, Indonesia. Tanpa membuang masa, saya serahkan kepada moderator. Dipersilakan.
Alright, thank you, Ms. Farah, our MC for today's slot. Right, Assalamualaikum and very good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry for the delay. We have emergency, right, just now. Okay, before we start with the morning session, we are lucky to have Pak Torik over here right now. So I think I can start to introduce a bit about Pak Torik, right? Pak Torik, the full name of Pak Torik is Mr. Torik Arif Kusdewan, right? He is a lecturer in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Gajah Mada, Indonesia. So if any one of you ever been to Indonesia, UGM, Universitas Gajah Mada is located at Yogyakarta, a very beautiful city, right, Pak Torik?
Right, yeah, you should come and have traveling here.
Yeah, right. So Pak Torik, he was graduated from the same department he is working right now, from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Gajah Mada, and then he pursued his master degree at University of Southern California, United States. Right. His professional expertise is also registered with the Institution of Engineers Indonesia, PIII, and then also registered with the Indonesia Institute of Construction Engineer and the Indonesian Construction Safety Expert Associations. All right, I think we have a very good speaker right now. He is very experienced in the consultation work, in the construction management work, and hopefully we can gain so many things throughout the slot this morning. And we will conduct both the session in both Bahasa Inggris and Bahasa Malaysia, and maybe some in Bahasa Indonesia, right, Pak Torik? If we have international participants. Right, you can ask your question in the chat box later on. And also if you, let's say, want to learn anything about the construction management, please spread the session to your friend outside there and ask them to join our slot today. Right, so without further ado, I will give the session to Pak Torik. Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much, Pak Andri. Should I can share the presentation?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just a minute. Is it okay? You can see my presentations?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to everyone. It is pleased to me. I'm very happy that Mr. Andri invite me to join with these sessions, and we can share many knowledge about constructions. And at this time, I would like to share my experience in construction management in Indonesia. Yeah, hopefully, well, the audience, maybe students or from practitioners as well, yeah, in here, will gain the knowledge about the profile or the environment, yeah, of the Indonesian construction projects, and hopefully I will get insight from the maybe from questions or from questions from audience. Yeah, thank you very much. As Mr. Andri already introduced me, that I'm a lecturer at the Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, an island in Java. It's a beautiful city. Yeah, we have Candi Borobudur in here. Maybe it is a famous, and many of you maybe already know. So sometime maybe you should visit Jogja, yeah, or leisures. Okay. Also, sorry for being late because of some reasons, but now I can start my presentations. So, okay, to start these presentations, I'd like to introduce about the country Indonesia. As maybe many of you already know where Indonesia is. It is actually neighbors or next to Malaysia as well. Yeah. Malaysia, Indonesia, and Australia. And as we can see here from the map, Indonesia consists of many islands here. Many islands. We have Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, Papua, and it is a very large country. We have 17,000 islands. Yeah, so it is the world's largest island country, 17,000. And currently, I think the infrastructures mostly, or the big infrastructure still mostly in Java Islands here, and is developing in Sumatra and Kalimantan. Kalimantan in the next 4 years, maybe we will be massive infrastructure project as well, because we plan to move our capital city to Kalimantan. So it will be very large construction opportunity, yeah, I think, in the next 5 years. But in other islands, I think it is not developed quite much. Yeah, so we still need a lot of infrastructure in other islands. So it can be seen as a big opportunity in the future. And I think I ever heard, yeah, maybe it is still dreams that we want in the future connections, yeah, between these islands. So we dream that all of this island will be connected by bridges. Yeah. So it can be imagined how big the opportunity is in the future. Yeah, because as we can see from these islands, from Papua to this is the East Java, yeah, and then Java to Sumatra, Kalimantan. If it is connected with bridges, it will be very large projects. Indonesia also have area of 1 million, almost 2 million square kilometers, and we have the peoples. We have 270 million peoples. So it is very populated country. We have a lot of peoples. It is a human resource as well in the future. Okay, so that is Indonesia, and this is the economy of Indonesia also. Well, it's ranked 16th, yeah, ranked 16 in 2018. So I think it's a big potential also in the economy. We are in the rank of number 16 in Asia. So yes, and as we can see as well, recently or nowadays that we have quite stable in politics, and the development also I think improving compared that old time, yeah, long time ago. So I'm quite optimistic that the future of Indonesia will be better, especially in constructions. I think also will be developing, because I think the most important thing in Indonesia is politics. Yeah, if the politics unstable, then that will affect many things. Yeah, but I think now is in control and in a better situation. So I think in the future also will be much stable. It means the economy will be better and the project also will be growing. And this is the construction project opportunities as well. If we see from this chart, it's quite good. Indonesia, we have 293. Yeah. So it is bigger market than Malaysia. Yeah? So Malaysia and Singapore. Yeah, Indonesia quite have a large market. And if we see the trends as well here, the value of construction completed is always increasing. Yeah, but I think in 2020 and this years, yeah, maybe it's declined as we know because of the COVID-19. So the construction also declines slightly, but I think it's happened everywhere. And once the COVID overcome, I think in the next near future will be increasing again. And then so we see here if we see the sectors, I think almost in all sector, yeah, both in building and civil works are growing. Yeah, the opportunities. So we have opportunity in building projects, high rise, and property. Yeah, property is everywhere here in Indonesia. In small city, big city, it's very growing. Yeah, property projects, and it's because also the economy is better, the capability of the peoples, the peoples are able to buy more expensive or better buildings. Yeah, so the property is growing quite very fast recently. And the high rise also, we have many apartments. Yeah, apartment is growing almost, but still mostly in Java Islands. Yeah, in Jakarta, Jogja, Surabaya is very fast growing. But in other islands, it is growing as well, I think. And civil works, quite massive. We have quite massive civil works, particularly in airports. Yeah, airports. In airports, airports and harbors. I think harbors also growing quite fast. And special construction here is industrial projects. Okay, for infrastructure project, this is the some of the big projects currently. We have Jakarta Bandung, Jakarta Surabaya, high speed rails, Trans Java toll roads. Yeah, so we have also the government also push the building of toll roads in many islands. Yeah, and it's encouraged private sector also. So I think it is more open or more advanced project delivery. Yeah, if before in Indonesia mostly the projects were funded by government's budget, but now I think it's very fast growing with the private sectors. So we have public-private PPP, yeah, PE3, public-private investment, yeah. Particularly, especially in toll roads and airports, we see growing numbers of project delivered with public-private investment, something like that. And MRT currently is mainly still in Jakarta, but I think in other city also will be follow, yeah, like in Jogja and in Sumatra. Yeah, I think in Sumatra already several rail, yeah, more advanced rail projects, something like that. Railway also developing in Sumatra, Kalimantan, Sulawesi, yeah. And high-rise buildings, I think everywhere, almost in Java and other islands as well. And in 2024, I think Indonesia will move to its new capital city in Kalimantan. So it's mean will be massive constructions, yeah, in Kalimantan here. The island, I think near here, yeah, near Samarinda or somewhere here. Okay, and then about the Indonesian construction companies, we have thousands of companies, yeah, but the large one only few. I think less than 1%, yeah. We believe less than 1%, but here almost 2%, yeah, the large companies. But I think the real ones less than 1%. So we have like 130,000 contractors, and the large one about 1,700. And well, we can call it the real big one, a large one, is the state-owned company. Yeah? We have about 10 state-owned companies, like Adikarya here, Pembangunan Perumahan, Construction and Investment. So this is before also contractor, and now moving to investment company as well. Nindya Karya, Wika, this is we have about 10 state-owned construction enterprises. This is example of the profile of the large company, yeah, Waskita Karya, or now it's called Waskita. Its line business is this one, toll roads. They works in toll roads, realty, apartment, high-rise, offices, yeah, like this. And then non-toll roads infrastructures such as power plants, water treatment facility, pipelines, etc. Oil, EPC, yeah, yeah. Many of these state-owned company also not targeting the EPC projects, engineering, procurement, construction. So it's mean bigger project and need more advanced delivery, need more advanced peoples, and higher risk, yeah, higher risk. And then precast and ready mix, also steel fabrications. This is example of the profiles. And yeah, I think they are also more independent. I mean, if before maybe much support from the government, but now they have to be more independent with their own ability to, especially to find the finance. Yeah, it's finance. And also, like in airport projects, many of these company also already do with the turnkey, or yeah, with the turnkey. Yeah, so it's investment. They build the project with the contractors' finance money, and then after finish will be paid. Yeah, not like in the traditional unconventional project where the project usually with progress payments. Yeah, progress payments. And in Indonesia, the conventional project, even we have like what is it? Uang muka. What is that, Pak Andri? Uang muka in English is like
deposit.
Like pay in advance. Yeah.
So, down payment.
Yeah, like down payment. The contractor get down payments or gets the 5%. Yeah. So if they have contract 100 billions, so when they will start the project, they get the payment 5%. Yeah, even before they start the works, so they get the budget to run the projects. Yeah. But now many of them do in turnkey, so it means they need a larger financial capability. Yeah. They should have ability in finance. Yeah. Okay. This is also the example of the financial reports, yeah, for the company. So many of these big company also already go public. They put their shares on the Indonesian financial markets, yeah, like Waskita here, Waskita. Its shares price 100, and this is some of the financial reports of their company. So their total asset we see here about 105 trillions. Yeah, it's 1 trillion rupiah. It assets. Okay, and in Indonesia also we have quite many foreign company. We have, this is in 2017. Yeah. Maybe now it's more or less yeah, in 21, but I think it's still about 500 in 500. The foreign company in Indonesia, we have many of them are from China. Yeah, from China, more than 100. And then South Korea, Japan, yeah, this is the big one. Malaysia also, we have many Malaysian construction company here, Singapore's. Okay, and then I like to share with about the construction regulations in Indonesia here. We have regulation number 2 to 2017. Here we can see that construction business in Indonesia can be divided into two, yeah. That is contractor business and consultants. So contractors is one who builds, and consultant, we have two kind of consultants. They are designers, consultants, and supervisions consultants. Yeah, so designers is one consultant who design, yeah, who plans the work. So they make drawings and also make estimating, yeah, for the owner's sake. And then the owner will use this as a owner estimate, and then when do the tenders, then the owner already get the appropriate budgets. Yeah. Then the contractor will bid the project, will make their own estimate, and the owner can compare the contractor estimate with this design consultant estimate. And then when the contractor do the job, then owner also can hire supervision consultant. So supervision consultant is one who supervise the project. Yeah. So this supervision consultant works start with the contractor job. If the designer consultants already start before, yeah, long before the construction starts. And so we have supervision consultants who supervise the contractor works. And for government project, the governments also have its own teams, yeah, that we call it headed by the PPK, yeah, PPK. I'm sorry, I forget the abbreviations. Pejabat Pembuat Komitmen, yeah. So one who have commitment to make commitment with these consultants and contractors. Okay, and for the contractors in Indonesia, we have also qualification. The contractor are qualified into small, medium, and large firms. Yeah, it's depend on the value of projects. So small firm, of course, they only able to join with the small projects. Yeah, I think the value is about 10 million, yeah, 10 billions, yeah, in rupiah. 10 billion rupiah, it's small. And for large is about 100 billions. More should be more than 100 billion. So for small project, the large firm cannot join. Yeah, so it is maybe to protect the small companies. And then the classifications, also the contractor can be classified into general and specialist contractors. So it's mean that for buildings projects, it should be building specialist. Yeah. So the contractor will be classified first, will be get the like certification, yeah, the certificate as a specialist contractors. So there are specialists like building contractor, road contractor, bridges, and etc. And the construction project also can be divided into new buildings, constructing new buildings, or renovations. Renovation. Although the renovation project, I think, is not quite big, yeah, at the moment. So the big projects, I think, still for new buildings, yeah, in Indonesia. And maintenance also growing for well, maintenance, particularly in civil buildings, yeah, like in roads and bridges, dams. Maybe the maintenance project quite well big enough, yeah. But in high rise, now still in high rise, but in in common buildings, I think the maintenance is not quite large in values. Okay. And this is the Indonesian contractors, the classifications. As I've mentioned, that in buildings we have 112, about 100,000, and civil contractor. This is civil contractor. This is mechanical, electrical, and others. Yeah. So the contractor should register, yeah, with the national body to get the certification as a specialist. That's why we have here this statistic, yeah, or this number. And as well as for the consultant also should have the certificate of specialist, yeah, as a architect maybe, or as a structural consultants, or as a landscape, yeah, etc. Okay, and about the construction workers, here we have also quite large workers, yeah, about 2 million of laborers. And well, we basically divide the workers, the construction workers, into experts or engineers and laborers, yeah. And laborers we divide into labor and skill laborers, yeah, unskilled and skill. And both of this human resource should have certification now. We are now in, or the government is push the certification programs, both for the expert or engineers and for the laborers. So we train, this is example of the training for the laborers, yeah. We train for several days, maybe they are carpenters or masonry, yeah, masonry. We give training to them about 1 week, 2 weeks. I think minimum 40 hours, yeah, 40 hours to give the skill for them, yeah. And for the engineers is to give the require knowledge, yeah, knowledge. If for the workers is the skill, but for the expert is the knowledge, something like that. And this is example, the certificate for the expert engineers. And the engineer will have, if they are less than 3 years, they will have the juniors, yeah, like junior experts. And then there is 3 to 7, maybe 3 to 7 years is the like the intermediate. And if the one have experience in construction more than 7 years, they are able to get the like the seniors, yeah, seniors engineers. And this is become the requirement in projects, yeah. So for a project, minimum for small project, I think it should be a minimum 1 intermediates experts. But for large projects, a minimum 1 or maybe more, yeah, more seniors experts, something like that. Yeah. Okay, we have, this is the statistic as well for the seniors. Madhya is middles, yeah, and the juniors. And we still have the junior much more than the seniors, yeah. So we only have about 3%, yeah, the seniors experts. Yeah, and no, also I think we are in join with the ASEAN's bodies, yeah, like ASEAN Civil Engineers, yeah. I think there is ASEAN Civil Engineers Charter as well. And this is the requirement. So for the this is the requirement for the seniors. The requirement is one should have experience more than 5 years of experience. And for the middle, Madhya, is minimum 2 years, yeah, 2 to 7. And less than 2 years, they have juniors. And for one who just graduate from university, there is also like juniors. Yeah, they can get the certificate as well as like a juniors engineers. So this is the requirement for engineers to work in Indonesian projects. You know. If this one is for the workers, yeah. So we differentiate between SKA, it's called Sertifikat Keahlian, yeah, for engineers, and SKT is Sertifikat Keterampilan. This is for workers, yeah, for the workers or operators. Okay. Yeah, this is the question, and this is the parties in construction in Indonesian construction projects. Yeah. So we have, I think, 3 method of deliveries. This one is the one most common use, the conventionals. So we have owners. Owners usually will appoint design consultants. Yeah, this is design consultant to prepare the designs, the drawings, the specifications, the cost estimate, yeah, something like that. And then once the design complete, then the owners will announce or open tenders to hire supervisor, consultant, and contractor, something like that. And the other ones is this one usually in private projects. Yeah, if private project in Indonesia usually only use design consultant. Yeah, but usually this design consultant also asked to be the supervisors in the future. Yeah. But usually the private owners only deal with the designs, and then once the design completed, then we'll hire the contractor. And this one also now growing even in very large project like in airports. I found there is also a delivery only on owner and contractors. Yeah. So this is like design builds. So in one airport, I know the owners only appoint one contractor, then the contractor prepare the designs and the constructions. Yeah. So I think it's more advanced or new in Indonesia that we trust only with the contractor. Yeah, in quotes. Yeah, I think it's good as well, but the problem is still in audits. Yeah, because for government projects, it is subject to audit as well. Yeah, so it should be very careful when deliver with this kind of delivery. Yeah, yeah, because I have experienced that in one big projects, it is, I think, still in about 30% of projects. Yeah, then there is audits from government bodies, so it's a bit challenged. Yeah, I mean, it should be ensure that everything's going well. Yeah, particularly for responsible with the budget, because this is government budget. But it is growing even in large projects. Yeah, now in Indonesia, I think more growing project deliver with this kind of contracts. Okay, so project delivery in Indonesia, this is in the government's regulations. We can deliver with design bid builds. This is the most common use, and then it's growing design builds now. EPC also already familiar or already used for a long time, and now PPP. Yeah, but like cost plus fee, before it is not allowed, yeah, in Indonesian project. But now I think I heard it start to be implemented as well. For EPC, this is mostly in industrial project, and then in PPP, this is in toll roads and water treatment projects. Okay, and then type of contract, we have lump sum, unit price, turnkey, and new. This is one cost plus fee. Before it is not allowed, yeah, but I see somewhere that it is now implemented. But the one that must be considered is the problem with audits, yeah, with cost plus fee, because it should be really be careful and everything's transparent to avoid problem with the audits and what is that we call it, like collision problems. Lump sum, it's mean, yeah, it's the price already fixed, yeah, and unit price, it's the price depend on the volumes, and turnkey is basically the payment method, yeah, that the contractor will get payments after the project completely finished, yeah, 100%. Type of bonds, we have bid bonds, performance bonds, payment bonds, maintenance bonds, appeal bonds. I think it is like in the theory, in the projects management theory, all it's like this. All, except this appeal bonds. Appeal bonds mean for sanggahan, ya, jaminan sanggahan. Yeah, like particularly this is in tender stage, yeah. When one company maybe want to appeal to sue the winners, yeah. So this company should give us a certain bonds, yeah, as a guarantee. And then we also have in Indonesia two type of failures guarantee. It's called construction failure guarantee atau or jaminan kegagalan konstruksi, ya. It's mean during the constructions, ya, guarantee during the construction. So if there is failures, let's say when pouring concrete and then suddenly it's collapsed, so it should be guaranteed by the contractor, something like that. And we also have building failures. It's mean after the project finish and it is already used, like when we build high-rise, maybe apartment, something like that, and then after it finish is okay, and then it is used for 3 years and suddenly it's collapsed, so it's mean building failures, yeah. And the contractor should guarantee the project with 10 years of guarantee, yeah. So it's mean it should not if the contractor build a bridge, for example, yeah, bridge, and then it is still 3 years and suddenly it's collapsed, so the contractor may be still responsible to rebuild again, yeah. This is the guarantee until 10 years. Construction problems in Indonesia, we still have project delays, cost overruns, quality, safety, environments, yeah. I think this is problem everywhere as well. I think in Indonesia also many projects still delay. Yeah, so this is still the challenge, yeah, how to overcome delay. Cost overruns, quality also in some projects still a problem, but in larger project, I think less problems. But in the small and medium project, we still have some concern about quality. It's mean that I think particularly the professionalism and the workers, yeah, because in Indonesia we still have use quite much workers, yeah, many workers instead of technology. So this is challenge, yeah, particularly in remote area. Remote area we still lack of technology, so it should be done with conventional ways. So it's with a lot of workers, and we still need many programs to improve workers, yeah, particularly unskilled workers, yeah, as we see from the statistic that unskilled still much more than the skilled ones. Safety also, I think it's emerging. For large company, maybe it's already good, but in small and medium, it is still progressing, yeah. But I think I'm quite happy as well that the government very supportive to make like training for workers and for the director or the manager of small company, yeah, to understand the importance of safety and make them pay attention or have program budgets for safety. Environments also where it is introduced, but I think it is still challenging as well. Yeah, like well in project maybe I see many times like well, they brings materials, yeah, like dirt, for example, yeah, well, a truck bring soils and it's on just loaded on the truck and with the cover, then along the way it's spread makes pollutions to one behind the trucks. Yeah, and yeah, I think environments and like in the what is it? Drainage, sewerage channels. Yeah, in a well, it's quite in big city, but they deliver with no concern with safety or environment yet. They just make hole without fence, something like that, and then it's quite messy, and that's problem. So we have still have to work harder for safety and environment, I think. And then project management in general, improving from traditional practice to modern in terms of professionals. So I think now we are more professional. We have more and more young graduates, engineers. Yeah, so they are, I think, quite different with the old one. They are more professionals, better knowledgeable, better familiar with technology. So I think now much improving than the maybe 5 years before. Yeah. Also BIM already introduced, although still limited. Yeah, maybe for truly large projects and government projects. Yeah, but now yeah, some, but I think still very few. Yeah, honestly, to use building information modeling. Improving workmanships, I explained that the government also give many training program for this workmanships. Yeah, so it's better. Some common practice. This is to share the knowledge of some common practice. In Indonesia, I think in project delivery, cost mostly maximum guarantee. Yeah. So we most of the project in Indonesia, I think, using lump sum, yeah, lump sum project. Even when we use unit price, but the what's that? The budget is like already been locked, yeah. So let's say if the project is 100 billions, and it is unit price, but then when it's nearly over or nearly to 100 billions, and it is still many works not finished, then maybe some works will be delayed, yeah, because the budget is already fixed in that numbers. And when there is audit also, usually we bring to lump sum, yeah. So we are still not very flexible with costs, yeah, with the cost budget. So I think many of the owner prefer cost is guarantee, yeah, with maximum price. And about handover, we have two types of handovers. The first one called professional handovers. This is mean when the project handover. It's mean the contractor give the key to the owners, and then the owner are allowed to use the facilities. And we have like guarantee time, yeah, about 1 year. I think 6 months to 1 year. So if during 6 months or 1 year there is something broken or some problem, then it should be fixed by the contractor at no cost. And then after the guarantee periods will be second final handovers. Yeah, it's when it's finished, and it's mean also the bonds will be given back to the contractor. Yeah, the guarantee bonds. And also we have a regulation about penalties is for delays, 1 per 1,000 per day. So if the contractor late, they will get penalty 1 per 1,000 per day for maximum 50 days. So if more than 15 days, it's finished. Yeah, whether the project finished or not, then will be terminated, yeah, with the penalty of 5%. So it's mean 1 per 1,000 per day. So it means maximum penalty is 5%. Yeah, for that is the maximum penalty allows. So that's why there is some project that terminated not finished because already past this 50 days, still not finished, then it's terminated. Yeah. And this is an example of the practice in Indonesia, but the project personnels we have here. This is a project about 30 miliar ya, 30 billions ya rupiah. 30 billion rupiah. We have like 13, this is 13 engineers. This is the project manager, construction manager, engineers, architecture engineers, structural, mechanical engineers, yeah, the engineers. About 13, yeah, with the positions and the equipments. We use one towers, excavator, mini dozers, but because I involved also in this project, so I see the delivery. I think I see, but the workers is about 200, yeah, 200 people works during this project. 30 billion, 30 miliar is about 6 months. Yeah, we finish it in 6 months or 7 months. And this is also the safety planning. So the contractor prepare about 50 helmet, yeah, safety helmet, and then what's that? Googles, yeah, Googles, maskers, earplug, yeah, something like that, gloves, shoes, yeah, rompi, like shirts, yeah, special shirts. Yeah, this one. The contractor should give this document in advance, yeah, so the owner can evaluate whether it is enough or need more for certain equipment, maybe. So this is in the contractor planning, something like that. And this is the example of cost estimate in a project's tenders. So the format is like the recapitulations, and this is the breakdowns, the volume. Yeah, as I mentioned, this is the volume, this is the unit price. Yeah, so unit price is controlled by the government. Yeah, we have here public government number 11. Yeah, this is as a reference for cost estimate. So we already have the coefficient here that will be used by the owners. Yeah, so the contractor maybe can use different with these coefficients. Yeah, but still they cannot more. Yeah, in total here, the contractor cannot offer more price than this standard, something like that. Yeah, so we have the coefficient from the governments, and also the harga satuan mean the resources price. Yeah, the resources price also the government also announce, yeah, in the webs, something like this. For the cost of goods, the government already set the maximum price. Yeah, so it's quite hard actually for the contractor, yeah, to bid the project because the volume, the coefficient is regulated, and then the maximum price of resources also cannot more than this maximum. Yeah. So it means that the contractors should be able to offer less coefficient than this. Yeah, I mean it means the contractor should offer more efficient way of works. Yeah, or construction method, something like that. Yeah, and if the contractor offer more than the standard, it will be problem if there is audit. Yeah, it can be problem because the contractor can be asked to return the exceeded money, yeah, in the future. This one from the web, the government already announced the maximum price. This is cost for workers for 1 day, 28,000 rupiah. This is also for each locations, yeah, like in Jogja, the government will have the standard. In Jakarta, it's different. In Kalimantan, the local government will also announce this standard as well. This is for 1 day. So 1 day in Indonesia, it means 7 hours, yeah, because we work from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and at 12 to 1 o'clock is what is that, istirahat? Yeah, it's break time, yeah, something like break time is not counted. So although it's 8 hours, but it's means 7 hours. So if we want to know the per hours, so this numbers divided by 7, yeah, not by 8. This is the example. This is the coefficient from the government's regulations, and this is the cost when the contractor can offer with its own price, but cannot offer the regulations. And for time management, mostly we use bar chart and S-curve. Project quality, yeah, we have specification document. We call it RKS, ya, rencana kerja syarat-syarat. Basically, it consists of material standards and process standard. We still lack of process standard. Yeah. So this is, I think, challenge as well in the future. The Indonesian construction companies should be more better attention on the process standard, yeah, like ISO 9000. This is a sample in quality control. If we want to test the column, yeah, the bar, the rebars. This is the problem that I encountered. Yeah, this is one of audit that I did in projects. That the works is many problems. Yeah, as we see here, it's not centers, and then this is wrong place, and the material also not standard, yeah, non-standard materials. Well, we still find quite many problem like this. Audit. So we do audit because of quality problem or because suspicion of violation of laws. Yeah, for example, because there is suspicion of corruption, for example. So then the government will do the audits. And in the audit, basically we check on the volumes, the numbers. Is it real that the volume's correct, and the quality. Safety, as I've already mentioned before. Improving construction practice, yes, this one, new delivery method, design builds, snow growings, better attention on safety, and etc. Yeah, I think that's my presentations, Mr. Andri. Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Pak Tarik. All right, so I open the session to audience. If you have any questions, you can open your mic or you raise your hand, or else you can write your question in the chat box. Right. While we are waiting for the question from the audience, I'm interested with the current trend in Indonesia right now, Pak Tarik. Just now you mentioned that there is quite a number of contractors from overseas, from foreign companies, especially from China, right? And then I'm not really sure whether it's a sensitive question or not, but we know that nowadays the People's Republic of China like giving loan to all countries in the world. Right? They give like a massive loan to the countries, and when the countries cannot really pay that debt, somehow the People's Republic of China, they like take over the constructions. Like we see the example of one country in Africa, the PRC take over the airport, and also the PRC take over the port itself, not the airport, but the port also, because the country cannot really pay the debt owed to the People's Republic of China. So now, I'm not really sure with the status in Indonesia. Is it a smart move or is it a risky move? Because I believe the number of contractors from China is on the top, right? You just now you show about 118 companies from China. Is it a package because the Indonesia loan the fund from China, or they really see that Indonesia is a big market for the constructions? And is it really a smart move or a risky move from the government? What do you think, Pak Tarik?
Yes. Well, For that matters, unfortunately, I'm not quite following the well, in quote, but maybe we call it politics situations.
Yeah, politics.
The politics, yeah. The politicization. So I'm not very following what the politics is. But I heard that, yes, it is true that nowadays we have quite many people from China who go to Indonesia for business. Yeah, particularly I think in oil and gas or in mining, yeah, in industrial, in industrials, quite many. Yeah, I heard the news or the rumors, yeah. But I'm truly I'm not very following the politics situation. But I know is that I myself ever join in a program to give training to China engineers who work in Jakarta at the time. So that is from a big company from China who built like big high rise and facilities. We have like 3 or 5 sessions, yeah, or 5 sessions. Each session like 30 Chinese engineers, and they are very friendly. Or also they are able to speak Indonesian well, and they are very hard workers. Yeah, so that is experience as well. That the China company, because maybe they want to do business in Indonesia, then they want to be trained to know the Indonesian regulation in constructions, how the Indonesian regulations, and also the bahasa. So that is to material in the training, that is bahasa and construction custom, like what the terminology usually used in Indonesian constructions. So it seemed like to membekali, to teach the Chinese engineers to understand how the practice, how so they can communicate with the workers, with the Indonesian engineers, and etc. So that is what I know with the Chinese company. So well, yeah, that is Pak Andri, I think.
Yes, I think we can say that from China is a smart move, and from the Indonesia is calculated, even though it's a risky move, right? But it's still a calculated move, right? As long as we can pay the debt, then should be no problem, right, Pak Tariq?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's all about yes, Pak Tariq?
Yeah, well, I think it is interesting for research maybe to more understand better about the move or of the risk with this kind of
yeah, it's a good topic for PhD study.
yeah, I agree with it.
Yeah, so it's still a calculated move by the government. But I think for all government, even though they're willing to take the risk, I believe it's still a calculated move by their minister, right?
Yeah.
And we have one question from the audience.
Oh, good. Yes.
Okay, Pak Tariq. Normally in Malaysia, we register the contractor with body called as a CIDB, Construction Industry Development Board, right?
Yeah.
So in Indonesia, the contractor must register with which body? Is it with PU or with another body?
Yeah, right. Well, I think there are some requirements, yeah, to do business in the Indonesian constructions industry. I think I'm not very understand about in details, yeah. But what I know is, of course, I think the construction should have physical office, yeah, in Indonesia. Should have office, and then they should register with beside the business in usuals. Then especially in business in usual, and for the construction in special, I think they should meet we call it LPJK, Lembaga Pengembangan Jasa Konstruksi. That is the like the registration bodies. So for foreign company also, I think they first should come to that, we call it LPJK, like CIBD, I think construction boards, ya. Lembaga Pengembangan Jasa Konstruksi, and then in LPJK, then they will be guided how they should go then to the associations. Yeah. So for contractor, there is like Asosiasi Kontraktor Indonesia. We have many associations. So I don't know which one better, yeah, and why there are so many, but maybe one can research before joins which one is the good one, because I heard some also maybe not quite good, or well, there is always problem. So the most important thing is, I think, to LPJK, that is like the first point, and then from there, I think will be guided to where to go, something like that.
I see. Okay, all right. So for those in Malaysia who doesn't know what is LPJK, LPJK is Lembaga Pengembangan Jasa Konstruksi, right, Pak Torik?
Yeah, right.
So it's like one entity under Pekerjaan Umum, PU. So PU is like JKR.
Well, it is. Yeah, it is quite. There is quite dilemmatic at the moment, because before is the PU who make all the requirements. Then we make this LPJK. We actually call this as a independent body from the society, actually. But then, because in the some years, I think 5 years before, there is problem, then it is now also pulled back again to the government, to under the PU again. So I'm not very sure at the moment now is now become independent, or it go back to the PU, ya. Yeah, but the terminology is still the same, LPJK, Lembaga Pengembangan Jasa Konstruksi.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another question, Pak Torik. All right.
Yeah.
Let me read the questions. Assalamualaikum, saya ingin bertanya. There is some project that currently under construction and has a problem from the delay, quality, and etc. Is there any solution for that problem to be handled by using a modern technology? For example, like cracking in beam. The solution in Malaysia is by mixing the concrete with sika. Sika is like the admixture in Malaysia. Is it being applied in Indonesia right now, Pak Torik?
Okay, yeah. Well, if in general, if there is problems, actually, well, if it is government projects, that of course it would be overcome in accordance with the regulations. Yeah. I mean, like if we make we pour concrete and it is under the under the requirements, yeah, and then it needs to be prepared. Then whatever method to prepare, I think it's okay as long as there is the reference, like the SNE from the Standard Nasional Indonesia, or international standard that already accepted or acknowledged as well in Indonesia. Yeah. So like I found many problem with the quality, like the concrete, it should be like let's say 21 MPa, yeah, and when we tested it's on the 15s, much lower than standards. Then we have to membongkar, ya, to
demolish,
yeah, to demolish and then re-pour the new concrete again. So it is okay as long as the method is accepted in Indonesian. So usually it's depend on the supervisor consultants. Yeah. So if let's say it's problem with quality, and then the contractor give treatment, yeah, or a method to refine this. So the contractor should get the permission from the consultant supervisors. As long as the supervisor agree, then it is okay to repair with the method. So there are also, of course, many methods, yeah, to repair the problems. And but finally, as I mentioned before, that this result should be guaranteed both in during construction and after construction with the kegagalan bangunan. So if it is been repaired and then after the building finish and it is operated, and maybe in 3 years and suddenly the building collapse, so the auditor will come to see what the cause of this problem. So if the problem of the collapse is because of the treatments, then the contractor or the one who make this new treatments should be responsible for the problem. It's something like that, Pak Andri.
Okay, so I think the summary is like, actually it's the same in Indonesia. In Malaysia, we have our standard. In Malaysia, we have Malaysian standard and JKR specifications. And then Indonesia, we have SNE, Standard Nasional Indonesia. And for any critical issue like the quality of the concrete is not reached, then we have to do a major revampment. We have to hijack the structure, build the new one, kan Pak Torik?
Right.
But for the small atau minor crack, then I think the minor adjustment can be made as long as the engineer on site agree with the changes on the quality, right, on the technical things. Right.
Yeah, right. So it's mostly depend on the supervisor consultants. That's why the supervisor, the consultant should be guaranteed that they know the technicals. Yeah, that's why they should have the certificate, something like that.
Yeah. So the keyword is everything must be agreed and written.
Yes.
Another question, Pak Torik. Okay, we have 2 questions in here. The first one, hi Pak Torik, I have 2 questions. The first one, how is the development of precast construction in Indonesia? And the second one, what are the main reasons that BIM, Building Information Modeling, is picking up slowly in Indonesia, and the move from the government to encourage more implementations?
Right. Sorry. Well, about the precast, I think it's now growing quite rapidly, quite fast, because for big projects also it's been accepted, and for common projects, the society, the peoples, like for housing project, also we use more and more prefabricated materials. So I think it's growing opportunity in Indonesia about precast and prefabricated materials. If I think 5 years ago, it is very slow, because we are not accustomed with this new technology. We are more comfortable with the conventional ones, like when we make 3-story buildings, let's say, the owners more comfortable with the conventional method. I mean, we do the reinforcement, and then we do the formworks, and then pours the concrete. That is the conventional way. Instead of using prefabricated columns, beams, and the floor, the people still not comfortable or afraid whether it is safe or not. But nowadays, I think we are more accept with this prefab. Even I think more preferably, because it is faster and better quality, of course, because it is prefab. And now that 10 state-owned company, also I think almost most of them also have the what is that, the anak perusahaan, the what's that, Pak Andri, anak perusahaan is like
subsidiary company.
Like subsidiary company. So they have their subsidiary company as a prefab specialist for prefab, preparing prefabs. That is about prefab. And the private company, private contractor or private industry also now growing. Many private industry also they are become industrial for prefab precast. In Jogja also there is some now. They open fields makes this prefab. That is for prefab. And then for the beams, yes, I think I'm agree with the question that it is still slow at the moment about using beams. The government, the PU is promoting about beams with trainings, yeah. But it is, I think, still slow. Yeah, it's still slow. I think the most problem is maybe the cost. Yeah, the cost of the software is for middle company in Indonesia. I think it's still expensive. Yeah, because for BIM software like Revit, yeah, it's I think quite expensive. Yeah, for the operator, I think we are ready. Yeah, I mean, like me in UGM, we already have many research in BIMs, and yeah, we teach also how to use BIM. So the students, I think already many of the students are able to use this software. Yeah, but the implementation in the project, I think, is still few. I think mostly because of the cost of the software, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so
also,
cost.
yeah, cost and the maybe we still don't really know about the use of BIM. The BIM. I mean, especially during construction, actually there are many advantages. Yeah. But I think after construction for maintenance and facility management, it is even more important actually. Yeah. But maybe many owners still not familiar with the use of this BIM. Yeah.
Actually, we have one big BIM center in UTSM, Pak Torik. So maybe we can collaborate later on.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
doing the
Good idea.
BIM works.
Yeah.
Right.
We have the specialist, the PhD, Bu Trantri. Maybe Pak Andri can call her sometimes.
Oh yeah, sure. Bu Tantri, yeah.
Bu Tantri, yeah. She's the expert in BIM.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Another question, Pak Torik. I think we can take it as the last question for this slot.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum, Mr. My name is Akmal Daniel. So Daniel here is asking about the labor from Indonesia who has worked around the world. As we know, in Malaysia, I think we have more than 1 million Indonesian who is currently working in Malaysia as a construction worker, right? And normally the CIDB is very strict in like putting regulations, especially for the certified worker, right? So if let's say this worker that has learned quite like a new technologies or like a new method, and then they came back to Indonesia, do they given advantage by the government of Indonesia in terms of their experience? Contohnya, let's say this worker has like 5 years or 10 years working experience in Malaysia, and then he already obtained like many certificates. Di contohnya pasang dinding batu bata, terus concrete mixing, or maybe reinforcement installations. When he came back to Indonesia, does he need to retake the certification from PU, or he can use the certificate he obtained from overseas?
Okay, yeah. Well, yes. I think I heard then that we are now in, I think in what we say, in coordination with the ASEAN. I forget what's the body in ASEAN. I think ICPT, ASEAN Civil Engineers. ICPT, I forget, yeah. But I think we are now in like in talking something like that to make like what is that, kesetaraan, ya, kesetaraan means what's that? So as Pak Andri said, that if these Indonesian workers already works in Malaysia and then have many certificate, then it is diakui, ya, they accepted in Indonesia as well. I think we are in progress about that once, but maybe it's not run yet. Still, because I follow some seminars, something like that we are in progress about that. But now I think in order to work as a construction worker in Indonesia, I think they should take the certificate from the LPJK, from the Indonesian body. Yeah. So they even they already have certificate as a tukang pasang dinding, cor beton, but when will work in Indonesian project, they still have to take this certificate as well, the same, but from Indonesian associations, like from LPJK, Lembaga Pengembangan Jasa Konstruksi, or from the association under the LPJK.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So I think that will be, actually we have one last question, but I'm not really sure whether it's okay to answer on, because Pak Torik, do you have any experience of working in Malaysia constructions? Because the question is related to that. The question is, what do you think about project construction management in Malaysia and Indonesia? I think they are usually talking about comparison. It's quite difficult to compare, because one must be having both experience in Malaysia and Indonesia.
Yeah. Maybe someday, hopefully, I can have experience to work in Malaysia. Maybe, yeah.
Amin. Insyaallah, Pak Torik. But I think what I can what summarize from your slides and also from the experience in here, that actually more or less is the same, right? Because we are trying to implement a good management work or good management practice in the construction industry, right? But sometimes the quality is not there. Sometimes the safety is neglected, and I think all those things are the key factors that making the construction industry is like sometimes can be quite dangerous, sometimes can be quite critical if we not handle it properly, right? That's why the good things about having GMP, the good management practice in construction industry, is very critical, right? I think in Indonesia and Malaysia, we are trying to achieve the highest level of that practice in our part. Right. So I think with that, we don't see any more questions from the audience. I will give the session back to the MC, Ms. Farah.
Di kesempatan ini, saya selaku pengacara majlis ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada panel jemputan di atas perkongsian yang diberikan. Seterusnya, mohon kerjasama para hadirin untuk menghidupkan kamera bagi sesi fotografi.
Assalamualaikum. Macam semua participant boleh hidupkan kamera. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3 untuk page 1. Okay. So, page 2. 2, 3. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Okay. Terima kasih.
Dengan sesi fotografi itu tadi, maka berakhirlah sudah slot 3 pada pagi ini. Pihak pengajur merakamkan jutaan terima kasih, mohon para hadirin untuk melayari patuan link yang telah dikongsi di chat box dan live comment bagi tujuan sijil penyertaan secara digital. Peserta hendaklah memastikan ketepatan maklumat diisi dalam link tersebut. Di samping itu, saya ingin mengajak hadirin semua untuk memeriahkan slot 4A dan 4B pada petang ini, jam 2 yang bertajuk Digital Transformation in Construction in Industry. Sekian, terima kasih. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Thorik.
Sama-sama Pak Andri.